this episode off. This is episode number 19 of the Sports Consiglieres Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Whalen. Unfortunately, Jerry Calla had to step away. He's getting ready for the States in Woodridge soccer. Our next guest is 2023 Hall of Famer, one of the 20 Jet Hall of Famers in Canton. He was elected to Pro Bowl of 3 different positions. He was a member of the New York Sack Exchange, and probably the second famous Joe next to Joe Namath. So it's Sports Consiglieres Podcast is proud to introduce Joe Klecko. Hey, Joe, how you feeling right
I'm
now?
doing good. Doing good.
You're doing good. Well, you look good. You look good. So happy belated birthday. I know you had a birthday, had some health issues. How you feeling after everything?
I'm doing better. I had an actual infection. I had a knee scope, and I had an infection in my knee. It was touch and go. It was a tough one, but I'm doing real good now.
All right. Well, you look good. You sound good. But I just wanted to get to, Sack Exchange. Unfortunately, last week, Abdul Salam passed away. You talk a little bit about your time at the Sack Exchange with him and like his passing. I know it looked like I saw him at the 2023 Hall of Fame inductee. Seemed like he had some health issues, but like talk about Abdul and as a teammate and as a person.
Well, again, the past couple of years has been rough on Abdul because, again, he had a lot of health issues, and he recently spent a lot of time in the hospital, and that's where he passed away at. We've talked to his wife Debbie a lot, and she's not handling it well, which is, totally expected for anybody's wife. But Abdul was that kind of guy that was a real rock for us as a defensive line. There's one thing you never had to worry about. We had to cover him up as far as, making plays, because he was always a steady player. He was the kind of guy that was there for us all the time. And, it allowed Mark and myself and Marty to do things that we were allowed because Abdul was so steady at playing the run especially. But he was a good guy. Abdul was known as he's originally under the league as Larry Falk. Yeah. And changed his name to Abdul Salam, which meant soldier of peace. And believe me, if there's one thing you didn't want to get on the wrong side of that soldier of peace.
Yeah.
Give me a minute. I'm going to get rid of my dog.
Okay, no problem.
All right. Sorry
That's
about
all right.
that.
I got 3 of them, so I know how you feel. So,
there you go.
Yeah, but I mean, I know he went to Kent State. He was kind of like you always think about yourself, Mark, and Marty, but Abdul Salam was kind of like, kind of like the person that really. I guess you guys were overshadowed a lot, but I mean, it's really just a sad loss for the Jet community. I grew up, watching the Sack Exchange, but so you grew up in Chester, Pennsylvania. Your dad grew up in Chester, Pennsylvania. You went to, I guess, St. Joe's High School, Boys High School, and then from there, after high school, you from just doing research, you really didn't have any college offers, and you end up playing semi-pro ball for the Ashton Knights. I mean, how did that come about, and then how did they find?
It was kind of unique. It was very unique. When I was growing up, we didn't really have any football in the area, and I went out my freshman year in high school, and I really got disheartened by one of the coaches telling me, that I wasn't good enough to play. So I kind of, went on to my way, and I went about working, and I went out my senior year, and basically, I made the team. And then when I got out of high school, though, I never got an offer to go to college because my family was a working class family. I didn't have any money to go to college, and I never got a scholarship. So I played semi-pro football, and that was the Aston Knights. And I played for the Knights 1 year, and there was a gentleman by the name of John DiGregorio who was a Temple's equipment manager, and he used to help out the team with equipment and stuff. So he told Wayne Harden, who was the head coach at Temple at the time, there's a kid out there playing sandlot football that's better than anybody in your football team, he said. And he come out and he watched me play 1 quarter and basically gave me a full scholarship to go to school.
Yeah. And he won the Heisman. Harden, did he win the Heisman Trophy? Did I read that somewhere? Did he play for Navy or?
No. He was a head coach for Navy with Joe Bellino and Roger Staubach.
Okay,
He
all
had
right, okay,
he
yeah, all
had
right.
two Heisman Trophy players underneath of him.
Okay, all right. So, and so you always seem like you're always affiliated with Temple. Like every time you hear Joe Klecko, how was it going to school there, and what was your college career like
Oh, it was
at Temple?
great. It really was. I mean, I think college time is probably the best time that you can have as a as a as a kid. Anyway,
Yeah,
give me 1 second. Hey, Katie,
yeah, no problem.
come here. But Temple University to me was right around the corner too. It was home for me and stuff like that, and so it was a great time for me to you know uh, you know, anytime I could go home and have a home cooked meal from mom, or
Yeah,
go to hang out with the guys at school. It was right in downtown Philly, and I lived in Chester, which was just right around the corner.
yeah,
But
yeah, sure.
listen, college time for all of us who had to play college football was a great time, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
And you play where at Franklin Field, or you played at the Vet?
We played some. We played some in Franklin Field, and we played some at the Vet. Yes.
Okay. And then from there, obviously, I guess 77, you moved on to the Jets. They drafted you in the sixth round. And then, I guess in your Hall of Fame speech, I guess there were 7, 8 years removed from the sort of Super Bowl. So you kind of figured, hey, this is a good organization, to be with. They just won, with their legacy and AFL and everything else. So just talk about your time when you got drafted with the Jets.
Well, when I got drafted, I was a sixth-round draft choice, and they had a lot of guys there, and they had a third-round draft choice they've drafted in front of me, and I was worried about it because the older guys were telling me that hey Joe, he goes, they got a lot of money invested in him as a third rounder,
Yeah,
and numbers don't work out, and I was worried about it, so when I was it was the last week, I guess, and we was coming down the last cut, and they're telling me that, Joe, you don't have, that good of a chance. And I said to myself, I said, you know what? If I don't have that good of a chance, they're going to remember I was here.
yeah.
And so the first team came out that, it was that week of the first game. And I was running scout team, and they came out and said, all right, guys, we're going to go half speed. And I said to myself, I'm not going half speed.
Yeah.
So they come out, and I busted the guard in the mouth and hit the fullback in the backfield. And everybody got in my face, was screaming and yelling at me. And I said, guys, listen, I said, you can come bring all you want, because I tell you what, I don't have a job and you do. And I said, I'm going to be here all day. And that's basically what made my bones. And I think the coaches thought a lot of that. And that's how I made the team.
Yeah, was that Walt Michaels, or was that before the Walt Michaels era?
That was Walt's first year, too. Yeah. Walt and I both came in there the same year.
And how was your relationship with him? I know you said you're both Polacks. I didn't think Michaels was a Polish name, but like you said, you're both.
Yeah, Walt and I were Walt was just like my dad. I remember playing baseball when I was a kid, and I hit a home run to win the game. And my dad used to stand in right field. I was left-handed, and I was playing shortstop. And my dad, I went out to see him after the game, and everybody was congratulating me for hitting a home run. And my dad said, "Why'd you boot the ball at short?" So, and that was Walt Michaels. Walt Michaels didn't care how good you were. When you screwed up, you paid hell to pay for screwing up. So, everybody knew Walt was a tough guy to deal with, but me, I was used to it. That was the way I grew up.
Yeah, and then growing up, that was like the kind of around the time I started watching football and watching the Jets, and it was a fun team to watch. I mean, 81, you had your first playoff win. Obviously a couple of years you came in. I guess they were 3-11, new coach, new system. But then 81, you had your first wild card win. How was that for the team? Like building up.
Well, we were coming pretty close, and the addition to Marty and Mark coming on the team the next year and everything like that, and then we were starting to gel as a draft, building it through the draft, where Marvin Powell, Chris Ward came in as big tackles, Dan Alexander, and Joe Fields was one of the veterans that was there on the offensive line. So,
Yeah, sure.
We were getting to be, somewhat of a team built from in. And that first, playoff, even though we didn't win the first playoff game, it was the beginning of something new. We knew we could build on.
Yeah. And then, of course, 82, you guys, you get injured, but you were healthy enough to come back, I guess, during the playoff. I guess you beat the Raiders, you beat Cincinnati, and then you end up losing to the Dolphins, who end up losing to San Francisco. So what about that? You're dealing with the injury, but also making it to the AFC Championship. Because, the teams you had back then, you had San Diego, you had the Raiders, you had Cincinnati coming on, you had the Dolphins. So, I mean, you had a lot of offensive-minded teams in the AFC.
Yeah, and the thing about it is we were covering up with our defense, and we thought after we played the Dolphins that year and we lost in the AFC Championship game, in the Mud Bowl, we figured, all right, well, let's come back next year and do it again. And we found out it's not that easy to do, and we didn't go anywhere. So it was a real reckoning for us in a way because to understand and know football, as youngsters, and then to know it now as a little bit more of a veteran, we were understanding, hey, you got to get after this every single year to make it work. And I think that made a big impression on us.
Yeah. And then I think it was 81 or 82, the phrase going to the sack exchange. And where did that come from, the sack exchange?
I disputed it with guys, and they had said they had a contest out there, as a fellow won the contest by naming it the sack exchange. Who the fellow was, I really don't remember. But, I remember Pepper Burris, our trainer, making light of it all the time. So I always thought it was him, but I was reckoned with that recently, and they told me I was wrong. Some guy won a contest, and he named it the sack exchange.
Yeah, it was. I mean, listen, and then I guess from when I read Abdul Salam's obituary, I guess there's a 30 for 30 coming out for the sack exchange.
Yeah, it's going to be out December 13th. Yes.
All right. So I mean, listen, I'll be watching that because, like I said, the sack exchange. For you four guys, definitely, left your mark on the game of football. But and for you, I guess it's unique. One thing about you are like interchangeable parts. You made a Pro Bowl in 3 different positions. So in '83, I think Bud Carson comes in and change the defense, go from 4-3 to 3-4, and how to change the sack exchange, and they put you on nose. So how did that change?
Well, Bud had come to me, and we had lost Abdul, and Barry Bennett had taken it over, and Bud Carson came to me and he said, "Joe," he goes, "what do you think about playing nose tackle in the cock position?" And he said he did it with Joe Green, but Joe Green did it in the 4-man line.
Yeah.
I said, well, what do you want me to do, really? And he said, well, he goes, let's just play it by ear and let's see how it works out. And he allowed me my freedom, and it really worked out. We played pretty much havoc on offensive lines by not knowing where I was going to line up, and put me in that cock position really gave me an advantage on getting off the ball. So it worked out real good for us as a defense.
Yeah, and then it definitely worked. So and then just moving on to '86, you had that legendary Jets Dolphins clash. I mean, your games with Marino and down in Miami. I mean that was there was a legendary. But like Ken O'Brien, I think had 5 TDs that game and threw over 500 yards. What was it like playing in that game back?
I mentioned that in my Hall of Fame speech. Matter of fact, I said probably the greatest game ever was when Kenny O'Brien, when we played the Dolphins and Kenny beat Dan Marino, and Marino was in the audience. I made mention of that, but anytime we played the Dolphins, it was always a shootout, especially with a guy like Marino, who was, he's one of the best ever to play the game,
Yeah.
And, it's a shame that a guy as good as he was, though, really never won a Super Bowl because he was a heck of a player.
It definitely was. But also, I failed to mention, like 83, was it 83 that you guys, you left Shea Stadium and went to the Giants Stadium? Because
Yes.
So, I mean, what was it playing at last game at Shea? I think my cousins got harassed from Jets Field in the in my aunt's backyard growing. So I mean, what was it like playing at the last game at Shea?
Well, for us, it was just a game to try to get into playoffs, and that's how we were looking at it. Playing the last game this year, we really didn't know it was our last game at that point in time. We didn't know we were going to Meadowlands that last game. Okay, we didn't learn that out until the off season. So, it really wasn't particularly. There was no significance to it to us.
Yeah. So then also 86, you lost to the Browns in that I guess the overtime loss. It was 85 or 86. You lost to the Browns and then overtime loss. Talk a little bit about that game too.
Well, Lance Mell and I got hurt, and we didn't win another football game when Lance Mell and I got hurt. So the defense kind of went downhill from there. And then, of course, that playoff game against the Browns, a couple of mistakes were made in defensive. There was a roughing and then a defensive interference for the first downs we gave them. But we should have won that game as a team. We were offensive. We were built as an offense to go because we had all the speed. But, the penalties hurt us that day, and it kind of set us back.
Yeah, well, I mean, actually, Johnny Hector, Wesley Walker. I mean, Kenny O'Brien. So I mean, offensively, it was a fun team to watch on both sides of the ball. So, and then Leon Hess was the owner back then. I know you had a special relationship with him. I mean, now it seems like the game's a little more corporate. So just talk a little bit about your relationship with Leon Hess and how like the owners now are different than from what it was back then.
Well, the game is just it's a cash cow, and these guys that run the teams nowadays, I think the original owners like the Leon Hesses, the Wellington Maras, the guys like that had the original teams, they had them for reasons of really want. They liked it. It was football to them, and they were football people.
Yeah.
A lot of it today is corporate, and like the Dan Snyders of the corporate world, and
Sure.
They own teams now because it makes sense to own teams now. I mean, the guys that the Sullivans of the league, like that owned the Patriots back then, they sold out before they hit it big. To Kraft, and they were not making the kind of money they make today. Let's put it that way. The game's changed a lot as far as that goes, and the players today. I mean, I made mention in my Hall of Fame speech that I was the highest paid defensive lineman in the league at $900,000 when I retired, and Aaron Donald last year made $31.9 million. He made $31 million more than me in 1 year, So, the game's a totally different game.
But then you end up leaving the Jets, and then you end up going to the Colts for a year. How was that? How was that exchange?
Always different because, I grew up with the guys on the Jets, and they were my boys, and I was their boy, And even though I didn't want to leave the NFL at that time because somebody else was making me do it, I wanted to do it on my terms, but after the 1 year playing there, I knew I had enough, and it was almost like biding my time till the season was over.
Yeah, and then I have to ask my partner Jerry was intrigued with your movie career. In 1977, you're in Smokey and Bandit, and one Smokey and Bandit 2, and you're also in Cannonball Run. So. And I saw on online like somebody did your piece when you're with Jackie Gleason when you ripped his badge. Like how did that movie part come about? How did that come about?
It was funny that Burt Reynolds actually called my house he got my number from the Jets, and he called my house, and my mom answered the phone. We were out, and she said, "Joey," she said, "Burt Reynolds called. He wants you to be in a movie." And I'm like, "What?" I said, "Mom, did you recognize the voice, who it was or whatever?" And she said, no. She said, he's going to call you back tonight at midnight. And he did. And that's how I got the chance that was Smokey and the Bandit 2. That was the first movie I did with him.
Yeah. And then you're also in Cannonball Run. So, like, did you ever think about going into acting after that? I know you had, like, the roles in there. But you ever think about going into acting? And how did Burt Reynolds kind of find? Like, how did he pick you out of
Well,
everybody else?
I actually had an article on the cover of Sport magazine of me standing on top of one of the rigs I used to drive, and that's how he did it because he was doing a trucking movie. He's a
Yeah,
big football fan, and
yeah,
that's how he
sure.
asked me to be in the movie. But you know, Cannonball Run and everything, just I became friends with him after that, and
Yeah,
the other two movies just rolled right into it more or less. And you know, thinking about becoming an actor. There was a gentleman who played in two of the movies with me. George Firth, his name was. He was
yeah,
a
yeah,
bit
sure.
actor. Who was in a lot of movies,
Yeah,
and he had a studio in New York City, or a teaching studio. And I said to him one day, I was with him, and I said, George, I said, you know, he says, I was thinking about maybe coming to maybe take acting lessons with you and see if I can enhance this. All. And he looked at me and he said, Joe, you're a really good football player, aren't you? And I said, yeah, I am. He goes, no, he says, a really good one, right?
yeah,
I says, he goes, maybe you should stick with football.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
gave up the acting career.
Yeah, well, listen. At least you have that. I mean, it was comical to see, but
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
do you follow the team? Do you follow the Jets still? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah. Oh, yeah, sure.
and what do you
I'm a
think
fan.
about?
I'm a fan. Yeah.
What do you think about, like, I mean, do they bring? I mean, is Woody Johnson? Does he cultivate the alumni, or does he does he bring the old guys back?
Oh, we have a whole group, you know, people that actually do nothing but deal with us on the team. You know, where they give us, you know, they want us there. They have alumni days and things like that, and special days for us. You know, they have a whole group for that is built around the alumni. So yeah, they do.
Yeah, and then what do you think about the state of the Jets now? I mean, losing firing Salah, they got Devontae Adams, and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, what's your take on the team now? And
Well,
then
I think what he's doing, all the things, you know, he's trying to make moves to enhance his team. I mean, you know, Joe Douglas and is making the moves, but you know, he's got to get the okay from Woody, and Woody's giving Aaron Rodgers all the tools he needs. So yeah, I don't think he's going to have any excuses, especially after now they got Devontae Adams.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
they lost a tough game against Buffalo, a lot of penalties in that game,
Yeah,
but
and a field goal kicker did that. But I mean, it just. But I mean, the thing is, there's so much parity in the league now. They're and the Patriots are down. Two is out with Miami. It's just like they could still make the playoffs, and that's
oh, it's
ultimately
not
going.
that's not even out of the question. You know, there's
So
no doubt. I mean, they have they've got a long way to go, and that, you know, they have the ability to get there with the talent they have. So
yeah,
I mean, there's no way you even start counting them out. They're in it for the long row. I know
yeah, yeah,
because you know they're making moves right now. You know, in the beginning of the season to do that. So no, I could see him making the playoffs without a doubt.
yeah. And then just getting back to you, who was the toughest team you faced, and who was the toughest offensive lineman you faced going on? Like who was the guy who said, "Oh my God, I got to face up against this guy"? Like, or was there a couple of them? So
Well, I think because I played all along the line, there was different guys at different times. I think the best tackle I ever played against was Anthony Munoz
yeah,
from Cincinnati. I think the best guard I ever played against without was John Hanna from New England.
yeah,
And the center, you know, Dwight Stevenson from Miami and Mike Webster from Pittsburgh were two unbelievable guys I had to play
yeah,
against. So,
yeah.
you know, it was always, you know, I didn't have an easy time out there, but anybody, you know, in the NFL, you don't play if you can't make it. So
Yeah.
there wasn't too many easy Sundays.
And then after football, like what did you do after football? Like what did you do? What you do in your kind of second career? Like what kind did you do after it was all said and done?
Well, I got into the brokerage business with trucking, and
Yeah.
I got into the construction business as a rep for companies. So yeah, I transitioned real easy into the real world. So I've been doing that ever since.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, you seem to be doing well, but like, and I know we're also involved in uh, Catholic Athletes for Christ. You make no mention about it. Like you kind of lean on your faith. I know you had to deal with some adversity through your life. So, I mean, how did how did you get involved with that organization, and what exactly do they do?
Well, the Athletes for Christ is an organization that is about throughout the league and all. I don't do a lot with them. I do a lot with a couple of speaking bureaus, but everything with the Young Christians Association and in the Catholic Church and everything I deal with.
Yeah.
I read a book when I left the game, and the book was called The Final Hour. And The Final
Okay.
Hour is a book that was written by Michael Brown, who has a website of Spirit Daily. And Michael and I have become very good friends since then. And when I read the book, it was a book about all the apparitions that have been, revealed throughout the world with Mary and how they affect our world. And it was an intriguing book. Matter of fact, I couldn't put it down. I read it for 2 days straight, and I finished it. It's the first book I ever had done that with. And it really changed everything in my life. And, especially after I get to talk to people like a guy like Michael Brown, who's going around and talk to all these people all over the world who have had interaction with, the Lord and Mary. And it's an intriguing thing to be a Catholic, especially at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. But and I know your son played in the NFL. You mentioned that too. Like he won three Super Bowl rings. You only got the one ring. How great was it to see the Klecko name back in the NFL after after you retired, son?
Oh, I mean, it's your son. I mean, there's nothing more in the world you would like than what happened with Danny. He got drafted by New England, and we were just ecstatic about the whole thing. And then when he got to go to Super Bowls and wound up with 3 Super Bowl rings, it was just listen, that's the piece de resistance. You play and have a good career, and then your son turns out to be a good player and he played in the NFL a long time, so it was enjoyable.
Well, did Belichick know about him? Like, because he used him a lot in
Belichick drafted him.
Yeah, no, but I mean, but did he know what he was capable of doing? And then, like, did he call you at all, like before
Yeah,
that?
well, actually, the day of the draft, when he drafted him, Coach called the house and he wanted to talk to me, and he told me something that was very unique. I asked him, I said, "Why did you draft him?" And he said, "He keeps us to, he said he was the #1 disruptive player in the whole NCAA." And I said, "Who the hell keeps a stat like that?"
Yeah,
And he said, "I do." I said, "Well, I guess that what makes you Bill Belichick, So,
exactly. Well,
he drafted him on potential. So he gave Danny a great opportunity, and we're still appreciative to this day on that.
yeah. Well, listen, Joe, I don't want to take any more of your time, but listen, I appreciate you coming on, and like, thanks for the memories, the New York Stock Exchange. I'm looking forward to that coming December. And did you guys shoot for that yet, or did they?
Yeah, it's all
how's it
done. It's in the can, as they say.
It's
Yes.
in the can. So you do still. I am obviously Marty Lyons. You know, shepherd you in for the Hall of Fame. Do you still keep in contact with Mark Gastineau too, or is that
Yeah, matter of fact, I talked to him just last week because of Abdul's death too. We've talked a lot recently, but yeah, I still talk to everybody.
Yeah. Well, listen, Joe, I can't thank you enough. And when I see Patty, I want to say thank you for setting this up.
Oh, no problem. It was
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, really. Listen, hopefully down the line, I hope we can set this up when Jerry's not in Woodridge soccer season. So, but I appreciate the time. I really do. And thanks for the memories, and thanks for just playing hard every day, and just giving the fans what they want. Like a hard-nosed player that you knew you were coming every single game, no matter what injuries were, how bloody your uniform was, and you're coming. And that was an era that it was a tough era to play in. Compared to then and now. I mean, that was a tough era to play in. And what was your most memorable moments looking back and putting it back?
I've been asked that question a lot, and I always said the greatest memory I have is being drafted. Being accepted into the NFL. It started a whole cycle of events for me in my life, and it was enjoyable. So I'd say the biggest thing that ever happened to me was actually getting drafted.
Yeah. Well, listen, Joe, thanks for the time. Heal up. I know you got a couple grandkids running around, so hopefully you can spoil them. And I know you got 5 kids, so you're definitely keeping busy. So, down the road, I hope I can reach out to you again. We can do this again. But I appreciate the time, and thanks for telling about your story and just letting us in your world, what you're doing. Pre, during and after football. I really appreciate it, Joe.
All right, it was a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
All right, thanks, Joe. All right, we'll be in touch.
Bye bye.
All right, bye.